Brought to you from Melbourne, Australia. This is the Badminton Podcast, a community for badminton players by badminton players, where we talk badminton, celebrate local heroes, interview players from all walks of life, and push you to grow as a player and a person. Introducing your hosts, Jeff and Henry.
Hello, badminton community. Whether you're a long-time listener or this is your first time, welcome to another episode of the Badminton Podcast, proudly sponsored by Volant Wear. Now, my name is Henry, and I'm here with my co-host, Jeff. Together, we are the co-founders of Volant Wear. Now, let me take you back to the last time you went out to the badminton courts. Have you ever seen traditional badminton clothing being worn outside of the courts? And how many people do you see wearing badminton clothing on the court? Well, Volant Wear is a brand just for people like you, wanting to show the world how incredible badminton is and to look great on and off the court. So check us out and shop at www.volantwear.com. You can pick up a t-shirt just like this for $32 delivered to your home in Australia. So there's also lots of free resources on the website as well that can help you with your game. And you can follow us on our social media at Volant Wear, VOLANTWEAR. We're excited to be here and on our way to hitting our new goal of 100 episodes. As you can probably tell, Jeff and I love to share how much we love badminton. We also love connecting with the badminton community and to share the stories of other players so we can all learn to be a little bit better as players and as people. So thanks again for tuning in. Now, before we get started, we just wanted to thank you, the listeners, for making this podcast possible. Without you, there wouldn't be a badminton podcast, so thank you for continuing to listen and to support us. That being said, it is completely self-funded and supported by our full-time jobs, so we'd love your help. In order for us to keep releasing regular and high-quality episodes that so many of you enjoy, we have set up a Patreon account where you can pledge just a few dollars per month, which will help us out a lot. We really appreciate those who have supported us so far and want to shout out to our official patrons, Lillian Chen, Stuart Brio, and our all-access Patreon, Rajiv Rai, on this episode. So thanks so much to all three of you for helping support our podcast journey. So if you'd like your own shout out or you'd like to provide some support to us, visit us at patreon.com/thebadmintonpodcast to play your part. We'll put the link in the description below. So now I'll pass it on to Jeff to introduce our exciting guest for today.
Thanks, Henry. I'm really pumped for this episode because we are going to be talking to someone that is my dear friend and I've known for a very long time. He was born in Manila, Philippines, and look, badminton wasn't something that he fell in love with straight away. In fact, he started out swimming, but he decided that he'd try to play badminton at the age of 9, and it took him on a lifelong journey, which he's still involved in badminton currently. Early on in his major local tournament, the under-11 junior nationals in the Philippines, he took out the number 1 seed. And without giving his entire story away, he ended up living and breathing the sport and has progressed towards Olympic qualification. Unfortunately, he didn't make the cut, but he had an unbelievable experience trying. And in doing so, he was the highest ranked men's singles player in the US in 2006 and 2007 with a world ranking of 69. These days, he's a current coach at the Global Badminton Academy with the head coach and owner, Tony Gunawan. Our guest today is Eric Go. Eric, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you guys for having me. It's an honor to be on.
It's been a long time since we've seen each other at your wedding, which was about 4 years ago today. So really good to see you and awesome to see that you're working with Tony, who we released an episode with for our 50th episode.
Oh, really? Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. Have you listened to it?
Not yet, actually. I've listened to Raj.
Oh, you listened to Raj?
Yeah.
So shout out to Raj. Thanks again for being a Patreon as well. Now, Eric, when we were having a chat before about your badminton story, there's so much more to it than what we just mentioned in the introduction there. So why don't we take us back to when you first started playing and what was the progression from there? Like you said that you didn't love it straight away. What happened?
Yeah, so, at the beginning, my dad was adamant that if I had to learn a sport, it would be swimming because it's one of those survival skills that would take you throughout your life. And I'm glad he did because I enjoy swimming. I enjoy going to the beach. So after swim practice, I would normally wait for my parents because they would play badminton at this country club. And so that one night I decided, you know what, let me pick up a racket and see how it goes. My mom decided to play with me. And I remember all I could do, I couldn't even hit overhead. And all I could do was just hit underhand. And I don't even think I was holding the grip correctly. And she was hitting all the way to the back and I could barely hit it across the net. And then my dad was like, why don't you try hitting it overhead? And I just couldn't. And I was like, I think my skill, I'll beat everybody just underhand. And so I think that took me even now. It's like one of my assets in badminton is my deceptiveness in the front, in the net. And then when my parents saw that I had an interest in badminton, they decided, you know what, if that's the case, then it's best that you get formally trained so you don't get injured. So there was this coach, I believe he is coaching at Bintang at the moment in the Bay Area. His name is Coach Badong Banquiles, and he would stop by every once in a while in our country club. And I took a couple lessons with him. And then a few months later, this ex-national player, his name is Peter Mendoza, and he's also here in California now. He lives in LA. I think you remember him, Jeff, right?
Yes, I do.
Remember we went to Vegas.
We went to Vegas together.
Right, remember Vegas together. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think he wanted you to play craps. Remember that?
Yeah.
And you were still underage, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so he took me under his wing, and he's so detail oriented. And so he taught me the proper swing. And I just didn't have such a good time, to be honest with you, just because we were just doing it over and over and over again, footwork wise, over and over and again. But I'm glad that he did. Because of that, my foundation, my fundamentals were on point. And then after that, he spoke to my parents and they were like, you know what? I think Eric would benefit more if he's in a team. So he interacts with other kids and he sees, imitates other kids playing badminton. So at that time, even now, actually, the best training facility in the Philippines is the Asuncion Badminton Center. So they took me, but at that time, they didn't have their own club yet. So we were training at this country club called Valley Verde Badminton Club. So we were all there training badminton. I think I was only training on the weekends back then. And I still remember, like you mentioned, my first tournament was this junior national under 11. And my first opponent, I didn't even know he was seeded number 1. And I was getting my butt kicked. I was, I think, 10-1 down or 10-2 down. And I remember all my teammates rushing to cheer for me because I was about to lose. And then I remember one of my teammates, Wally Fernandez. I think you, I don't know if you remember him.
I do remember.
Yeah. And he was there in the side and he was like, he was screaming at me. He was like, just let this guy run, just run him down. And so I did for that next few points. And from then on, I end up winning that game and then eventually the whole match. And the rest was, and end up winning the whole tournament. So, yeah.
Awesome. So from there, where did badminton take you? So what was it like playing in the Philippines? And then how did you end up, say, in the US? So
I was not doing well in school. I was doing really poorly in school. I was just, I don't know, I was a kid. I just wanted to play. I didn't had much interest in school. I was failing my classes, especially English, actually. So my parents went to the school and they spoke to my teachers and they were saying, the best way to learn English is immerse yourself, start talking in English at home. And my dad's like, you know what? I have a better idea. Since my dad went to school in Ohio State and he was a citizen. So he was like, you know what? Why don't you come to the US and we'll try it out over the summer. And I liked it. I loved how the school system was here compared to the Philippines. They made it more interesting, more fun. And so we eventually moved here. We moved up north in Palo Alto. And same thing, I would only train on the weekends with Peter and Andrea Baum. And then on the weekends, I would train with Andy Gao, Coach Andy Gao. And luckily, I had pretty good results. I was winning nationals. And then one day, I think I was age 14, freshman in high school. I'm going to freshman in high school. I remember Artie Uranata, who was a legend, still a legend. And I remember watching him on TV and he approached me during the junior national tournament and he was like, would you like to train at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs? And so I was like, oh, of course, I would love to. So that summer, went back home, I packed my things and I moved to Colorado Springs. And there I met Kevin Hahn, Howard Bach, Raj Bob, and other athletes. We were in the same dorm hall with the volleyball players, the men's and women's volleyball players. And then on the other side were the gymnasts, shooting. So I met a lot of great athletes like Ian Thorpe, Apollo, you know. It was such a great experience.
So from there, what happened after you joined US Olympics, the center there? Were you able to stay there and keep training when you were going for the Olympic Games in 2008?
No. So I believe I moved there when I was in 98. I believe it was in 98 that we moved there. And then I believe in 2000, they cut our funding in that training center. And so they moved us to Lake Placid. But my parents decided that we will move back to California instead. So we decided to move to California, and I trained at OCBC. Howard, Bob, and Kevin decided to move to OCBC as well.
Yeah, you guys were like a package deal.
No, I think a lot of us just didn't like the idea of going to a really, really cold place, because Lake Placid is just very, very cold. So I think we were more interested to going back to California.
Yeah. So once you were back in California, what happened next?
So training, it was tough because, we still had to go to school, but we want to stay competitive because the rest of the world were training 2-3 times a day, 6 times a week, so we would train at like 7 o'clock for 1 hour, 7 to 8. And then right after that, I'll have a quick breakfast, head to school. And then after school, we'll have a short break and then train again from 3 to 5. And then after that, I do my homework and then go to sleep.
Yeah, sounds like that kind of lifestyle where you have to juggle both. When did you decide that you wanted to go into it more as a professional basis?
I think when I graduated high school, I wanted to pursue badminton and hopefully go to the Olympics. So I made a deal with my parents, and I told them, because coming from an Asian background, education is such a big deal, right? And so I made a deal with them. I told them whether I make it to the Olympics or I don't, I will stop badminton after 2008 to pursue my college. So that's basically what happened. And after 2008, I missed badminton, So I decided, and it just happened to be the financial crisis at that time. So it was so hard to find a job. And so it was a perfect time to start coaching, doing just some private lessons. And Peter was actually kind enough to take me under his wing again. So we coached together for like a year or two at LABC. We coached the Filipino group there, and until I joined Tony with GBA.
Cool. And then when you finished in 2008, you did go back to school. What did you end up studying? I studied business admin. Okay, sure. And have you ever looked back and thought maybe I should get into a business admin job since then? I do now. Yeah, because we locked down.
Yeah, we locked down. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. The other day I was just thinking maybe I can do a contact tracing job or something.
Yeah. So Eric, you've been all around the world, right? Training, playing internationally, etc. My understanding is that you were part of the IBF, so in now BWF, the training center in China. When was that, and what was that like? Wow. I believe I was 19 or 20 years old. That was a very fun experience. It was in Guangzhou. They selected all these athletes from around the world. So I got to meet all these different athletes from Australia, from where else? Australia. And the us.
I'm sorry, I'm getting... what else? What are all the other countries? Bulgaria. We were training with the Bulgarian team. Oh, the Philippine team was there too at the same time we were there. The national team was training there. And so, yeah, it was a really good time. We trained every day, twice a day. We had Wednesday afternoon off, Saturday afternoon off, and the whole Sunday. But other than that, it's morning training, afternoon training, and we even had Chinese class in the middle. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So how's your Chinese?
Horrible.
About as good as mine then, man.
It's very impressive every time I hear Victor speaks in Mandarin. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's incredible to see a Caucasian speak fluently in Chinese, regardless. It's a very exceptional thing. So, Eric, you're talking about training in China. Compare it to your training that you provide here or that you experienced in the USA. What kind of differences and similarities are there?
That's a good question. I think one thing that I noticed is the boundaries that we set for ourselves subconsciously. I would do jump rope 100 and I thought, wow, that's a good accomplishment without stopping, right? I went to China and these little kids that are like 10 years old, they were doing 500 in a row nonstop.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in my head, there's no way I can do that. But just because of that and seeing that they can do 500 and they're so much younger than you, the first time I did it, I did over 200. I've never done that in my life when I went. The most I could do was 120 max, but just seeing them being able to do that, just push my boundaries a little further. Same thing with the running. If you don't make the time for the mile, they have you do it again. They have you do it again over and over again. And so I think it's making you mentally tough and that boundaries, breaking those boundaries. We set these boundaries that we think, oh, this is the most we can do when other people are actually shattering that, breaking that. And the amount of hours that we spend in training over there was, it's unbelievable compared to here. I mean, I guess over there you're doing it as a career, here we're doing it as, we're doing it together with going to school or work, Yeah.
Yeah. How powerful do you think it is to have that rub-off effect? So the experiences that I've had, especially in Asia, when you are doing so many hours, and because there's usually so many people training, right? You just watch. You can watch the other players a lot. And then there was a period of time when I was in Indonesia training and I was just watching these players play these shots. And then we didn't do any skills practice for that week or so. But then the more I watched, all of a sudden I noticed that I just started doing those things because I was just replicating and copying them, even though I didn't actually practice them. So how did that go from you?
Yeah, same thing. I think being able to watch these athletes, these players perform these things that you didn't think was possible, not only does it give you that sense of motivation and excitement to try it as well, but it ups your game a little bit more, right? By watching them and trying to oh, you know what? I didn't even know that's possible.
Yep.
Yeah. And as a coach here, not here, but in the USA now, Eric, how do you try to instill those kinds of limitations or how do you try and exceed them for your players when you're trying to develop them now?
So I realistically, out of all the athletes, all the players that we have, only very few, a handful of them will pursue going to the Olympics or pursue badminton in a professional manner, right? So I always tell players and my kids that, there's so many things that you can learn from badminton. For one, time management is one of the key things that I learned from badminton. Juggling from training before school, then training after school, doing homework. You really need to be able to manage your time effectively. Being punctual is another thing. You have to be on time or else your coach will get mad at you. So these are, and good sportsmanship, good attitude, positive outlook. Because a lot of athletes, I forgot who released this article a few months ago, but about having athletes about having depression because of how intense the competition is, right? And sometimes the roller coaster ride of winning and then losing and then winning and losing. You definitely need to be thick skin or be tough, mentally tough, emotionally tough, or else it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if we move on from there and we talk about the players that you looked up to, like currently and in the past, because we did talk about how important it is to watch the top players and see what they're doing to give you inspiration and you can learn from them. So past and present, who are your favorite players in world badminton?
I have so many.
Top 5.
During our time?
Yeah, during our time.
I would say Taufik was definitely one of them. Lin Dan, and especially how explosive he is. Chong Wei, since I trained in Malaysia, trained with him for a couple months. His work ethic, it's unbelievable. Now I would have to pick probably Victor and Mamoto.
Yeah, Victor Jackson and Kenta Mamoto.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, for what reasons there, Eric, for those two?
Momoto for his physical fitness and determination and his relentlessness, right? To just dig for every shot. And Victor for, you hardly see an athlete that tall be so agile. He just moves so well in the court.
Yeah, I was thinking you were about to say because of his Chinese.
That too.
Extra points, right? Okay, cool. All right. So, Eric, what we're going to do, we're going to be doing something a little bit different for this episode. So we're going to basically use all of your knowledge from all the training you've done, all the coaching you've done, all the competing you've done, and get you to answer some of the most commonly asked questions about badminton.
Okay.
Yeah. We've also found 4 questions from Reddit users as well that Henry's dug up to see whether we can get professional opinions on them.
Okay.
So it's...
I'll do my best.
There's going to be a few questions here, but hopefully with your knowledge, you'll be able to give some insight to some of the listeners out there. So my first question is, what do you think are the most common... When I say most common, let's just go for maybe 3 to 5 things. What are the most common mistakes that you tend to see badminton players make when they just first start playing?
Panhandling the grip.
Yep. So grip.
That's one. Wrong footwork. Like if they're right-handed, they'll be using their left to lunge. Service mistakes, like serving overhead instead of underhand.
Yeah, like tennis.
Yeah, like
Because they're just so used to doing like a tennis serve, right?
Yeah. I guess those are the 3 most common ones, I think.
Cool. Yep.
And Eric, so for those 3 mistakes, what kind of recommendations or suggestions would you have to beginners that might have those kinds of issues?
So normally with the panhandling grip, I have either have their palm on the racket and have it go all the way down, so they're holding it correctly, or shake someone's hand and keep their hand in that form, and then hold the racket on the skinny part of the grip. The grip, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For the serve, I have just try a backhand serve first. I think that's an easier way to do a backhand serve instead of a forehand serve. So at least they can start hitting with each other first. And then when they get the hang of it and they find the fun of hitting with each other, then I slowly introduce the forehand serve to them. And finally, the footwork, I just tell them, your right hand and right foot, or your dominant hand that you use, is always together with that side of your leg.
Okay. Next question. What do you think are the key things for a player to develop and get basically like to the next level of their game? So let's just say when you were playing and you've reached a certain level, and then all of a sudden, did you find that there were certain things that you worked on that really made the biggest difference in your game? What do you think those things are?
Mental, definitely mental. Confidence and physical fitness. I think those 2 for me really make the difference in badminton. Just because I think at the top level, when everybody's skills is about the same, right? Later on, it boils down to how long you can last on the court and how mentally tough you are that you can hang on and keep going even though you're tired, right?
Yeah. So how does someone get mentally tough? How does someone develop this mental training so that they can improve in that aspect?
You tell me, Jeff.
No, I'm not asking you.
I got this from you. Just like that book, The Secret, you keep telling yourself these positive affirmations. Mm-hmm. And by doing so, when you say it, you start believing it. And when you believe it, you start doing it. And in turn, it just manifests. So I'm a true believer in that. And I always try, when I catch myself being a little bit negative, I try to think of something positive and trying to turn it around just to look at it in a more positive perspective. And for me, that helped me a lot.
Yeah. How important do you think it is to work yourself into the brink of exhaustion to get that mental strength as well? So like put yourself through that physical pain so that you can push.
So for me, it would be every time I feel like tired, I feel like giving up, I picture myself in my ideal vacation spot. And I just keep thinking, after this game, after this tournament, then I can go on a vacation. I'll be under this coconut tree in this white sandy beach. So just having this positive outlook and having, okay, this will pass, but I just have to hold on to it and then eventually I'll be able to pass it and then,
Mm-hmm. And then when we dig into the physical stuff now, so you said the main things that you found that helped you was mental training or mental strength, and then physical training and getting stronger physically. Do you mean more long things, so being able to last on the court, or do you mean improving your power or your strength or your speed or agility?
Both. I believe both is equally important. Weight training, running, endurance training, I think helps a lot. Definitely helps a lot. And I think a lot of athletes nowadays tend to just practice skills, and they overlook the physical part. And I think that's what separates the top athletes from the rest.
Yeah. Did you ever use a weights vest for your footwork or your training?
I did when I was younger. Yeah. When I was in, I think when I was 18, 19, I would use ankle weights. Yeah. And then later on, I moved on to the vests. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me personally, I found that really helped me.
Yeah. Don't you feel like so much lighter?
Yeah, it felt so much lighter, but I just feel that it just develops your strength and your ability to push off in a different way than you would if you were doing weights, for example, because I guess it's a little bit more specific to badminton in itself. But I found that was a really big one for me in helping me to gain a bit more power and, of course, endurance on the court, to have a weights vest on. Yeah, cool.
And speaking of on-court stuff as well, Eric, do you think that on-court fitness training such as footwork and multi-feeds is just as good, if not better, than just running? Or do you think one is better than the other?
I think they're both, again, equally important. It's just training different aspect of your game. With the multi-shuttle, I feel like you're training that high intensity and cutting down that recovery time and being able to go again with that same intensity for that next 20, 30, 40 shuttles that you're doing for that multi-shuttle, right? For the running, I feel like you can do the same thing with sprints, like 1-lap sprints or 100-yard dash. With the multi-shuttle, it's more of like the application itself and the sport, being able to practice your skill set and your endurance and stamina at the same time.
Mm-hmm. For someone out there who doesn't know what kind of multi-shuttle training to do, for example, what would a multi-shuttle program look like that you would usually get your players to do? Like how many shuttles, how many sets, what kind of routine? Is it smash net? Is it full court? Is it rear court, front court, defense, attack, etc.? Is there a certain one that you find is really good?
I really like, since I am more of a tactical player than an attacking player, for me, what worked best was that 10 sets of 20 shuttles for endurance and for moving all over the court, right? So it's a 20 shuttles just anywhere, 10 sets of that. But for like an offensive player that likes to attack, a smash and come in is very beneficial for them. But I think all around, these are like the basic trainings, like the 20 shuttles, 10 sets of that, front and back, defense side to side, and then practicing your smashes at the back, practicing your net in the front. Maybe for the smashes, you do 10 sets of high intensity, just all out a smash at the back. In the front, you can do a little bit more with maybe 50 shuttles, just net play of like deceptive shots in the front,
Yeah. So when you say 10 sets of 20 shuttles, are you saying do them in a row, or is there a bit of rest in between? And then do you do the 10 sets more than once?
Yeah. So at the beginning, we would give our players about maybe 30 second rest in between, and then do that. Later on, we've been doing 50 shuttles and 10 of that. So it's 50 shuttles with no rest, and then a minute rest, and then 50 shuttles again. 10 sets of that. So it just depends on how physically fit the athlete is.
Yeah. I guess the beauty of having all these different types of drills and exercises that you can really target into areas that you find that players require development in. Now, Eric, with your experience of however many years now you've been a coach now, and you're coaching at the Global Badminton Academy, what is it that you find is the most challenging thing for players to improve when you're coaching them? I know, we can target these areas with certain types of drills, but is there anything in particular that you sort of often find in players, like it's a specific thing that you see more commonly as an area that you feel that they need to improve?
I see a lot of juniors are having, at least here in the US, is what I call the kamikaze effect. They're just going all out in every shot instead of like, so they'll win an amazing point, but they'll lose 5 or 6 points in a row by hitting the net or hitting it out, instead of just trying to keeping it in and being a little bit more conservative on the shot, but giving your opponent more chance to making the mistake, right? Instead of trying to win every single point by a good shot.
Yep. Because it's not, when you get higher and higher up in level as well, the winners that you hit are harder and harder to hit. Even though you're improving, your opponent's improving and their defense is improving. So the fact that you might win one shuttle, one winner, and then hit 5 unforced errors trying to get the next winner is just very counterproductive.
Yes, exactly. So, and that's the funny thing is that because when we were playing, I find it that when we were competing internationally, the level is really high, but I don't get caught as much as when I go back to the US and play with the junior teammates that I had, and they'll be hitting incredible shots. But after that, I'll win 5 easy shots or 5 easy points. You know what I mean? I find it in when you do these international competition is that the opponents that we have don't make easy mistakes. We're making the mistakes, easy mistakes instead of them.
And I guess it comes down to something we used to say when I was a junior as well, which is, especially as a junior player, because you're going out for the all-out smash or the net spin and everything, right? And that's just a very junior kind of mindset. We always used to say to each other, just weather the storm. So what I mean by that is sometimes you go out and you play an opponent that maybe they're not on paper as good as what you're meant to be. Then all of a sudden they come out, they're really motivated, they're fired up and they're smashing everything, they're hitting lines and they're beating you and everything like that. And sometimes all you need to do is weather the storm and then the mistakes come, because it's not that usual, not that possible for them to hit the lines for 2 whole sets, right? To win 2 sets. So you might lose the first, but just weather the storm, keep weathering the storm, and then they will come.
Exactly. At the same time, that intensity is very hard to maintain, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So now we'll move on to some of probably the most asked questions that we generally see. So myself as a coach, but definitely not as coaching as much as you are, Eric. But 2 questions that I always get asked about is, number 1, about smashing, and number 2, about backhands. So it's actually probably more about backhands than smashes that I get asked. But we're going to go through these. So what do you think are the most important elements of someone's technique to get the most power in their smash?
Abs.
Secret sauce.
No, to be honest, it's jumping and your shoulder strength. Just going and then, so jumping and turning your shoulder first and then crunching your abs for that strong smash. And then at the end, when you're about to hit that shuttle, it's that grip, squeezing the grip for that extra whip.
So you should be squeezing the grip quite firmly, yeah? When you hit the shuttle.
Right, exactly. Right before you hit the shuttle.
But it should be loose beforehand, right? It should be a bit loose and relaxed.
Exactly. Yep. Correct. Yep. Yeah.
What do you find is the most common mistake that someone makes when they're trying to hit hard? So I heard this analogy. I can't remember where it was. I think it was on a podcast. I think it was on the Tim Ferriss show. But they talk about, I don't know what the term is, but doing less to get more, basically. So less is more. So basically they were saying that if there's a sprinter who's trying to run really fast, they don't try to run at 100%. They try to run at 80, 90%. And because their body is more relaxed, more fluid, things are working better, then they actually run faster, even though they're not trying 100% and exerting themselves. Do you find that amongst the other mistakes that some people may make, do you find that some people are just trying to hit it too hard?
I think it starts with tensing your body at the very, very start, even before the shuttle is close to that person. Right? They're already like stiffening up and getting ready to hit that shuttle hard. And by doing so, you don't get that elasticity of your body. So like what you were saying, being able to be a little bit more flexible, relaxing a little bit more so you get that flexibility. And right before you hit that shot, it's like a rubber band, right? So you want to extend that rubber band and then right before, then you snap. So it's just the same concept.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And that's what I see with a lot of players when I do end up playing a bit of social badminton, because I don't play very competitively these days, is that you see players, they're actually overdoing their smash. They're trying too hard. And then what happens is that their technique falls apart and they become really stiff and they don't have that elasticity that you're talking about and that snap. They're just very stiff and just very much, it's almost like they're trying to use brute force in a sport that's not designed for that. It's more of a artistic kind of sport than anything.
And you know what I notice nowadays too when I watch these top athletes play is that they don't really go all out on the smashes unless they feel like they can win that shot right away, right? They're normally more on that angle smash, that half smash, but it's angled more often than not.
Yeah, I find that the full smash quite often is more when they smash body, right? This is singles we're talking about. I think they're a lot happier to smash body hard, but if you smash hard or full smash towards the sides, I think, especially with the defense of some players these days, like I was watching some clips of like Lizzie Jia, and he can play full stretch cross block off your full smash, like so much. He's diving on the ground and can play cross. So I think that's a really important thing, is that you need to make sure that you're also smashing to the right spot and at the right time. So of course, the timing that you smash and making sure you're in a good position if you do want a full smash as well.
Yeah, I feel like for me, smash is a very tricky thing. It's because you're exerting so much, a full smash at least, right? You're exerting so much effort. And then at the same time, you got to calculate, will I be able to recover on time and get to the shuttle before it lands on the floor, right? When it comes back, right? So every time you smash, there's that calculation of, okay, how much do I put so that if they get it back, I can still recover and be able to get the next shot. So I think that's why a lot of athletes try to use half smash instead of a full smash, unless they feel like they could actually win that point with that shot.
Yeah, certainly at the higher levels. But yeah, that mindset or that thought process that you're talking about, Eric, at the more junior levels is almost neglected at times. So Eric, now to shift our focus onto the backhand, what are the most common misconceptions or mistakes players usually make when trying to hit a backhand?
They're slicing their shot. And so it's similar to smash in that sense. They're trying, because they know that backhand is weaker than the forehand. So they try to compensate by trying to hit it harder. And what happens is that the timing or how they hit the shuttle is not really flat, right? So they end up slicing the shot, and so it doesn't matter how hard you hit. If you're slicing your shot, it's not going to go anywhere, or it's not going to go to its full potential. So what I try to emphasize on my players is that try to hit it solid first, hit it flat, hit the cork first, being able to hit that cork, and then slowly increase the power, increase the speed of your swing.
Yeah. So start slow, get the good timing first and good contact with the shuttle, and then add the power there. How do you add power? So how do you build that power to get it to the rear court once you actually do have good timing with the shuttle?
So I use the pronation. I tell my players to pronate your arm. So that twist was actually what gives a lot of the power in badminton, right? But it's hard at the very, very beginning. When you teach them that pronation, they're going to slice that shot, right? So at the beginning, you start with a slow motion, just being able to hit it flat. And then once they start being able to, then you start introducing that turn, that pronation. And then that's the same thing. It's like you have to relax. So you get that elasticity and then being able to.
Yeah. And then when you hit, you tense up again, grab the handle a bit harder.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And then, so I assume we're talking more about the backhand clear, yeah?
Yes.
In those situations, yeah? Mm-hmm. And maybe a smash if you're Tolfik.
Yeah. Well, smash, you just have to hit it in a more downward angle.
Yeah. Yeah. So similar kind of things you need to do. It's just the angle at which you hit.
Exactly.
How about drop shots?
So drop, then now it's what we were mentioning as wrong is actually, for me, when I teach backhand, I encourage the slice for the backhand. Hitting a little bit of the cork, a little bit of the feather so that the shuttle spins even more. I also tell a lot of my players that if you look at the shuttle, how it's better grooved on the backhand side, which is on the left side.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
So if you look at the feathers are grooved like this. So when you hit it with the racket, there's more friction or like more, because when you hit it on the forehand side, especially when you're right-handed, you're hitting it with the feathers, so you're not really scraping it as hard. But on the backhand side, since the groove of the shuttle is when you're hitting the shuttle, it's, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Are you saying the shape of the shuttle allows you to slice more on the backhand?
The angle's even better. It spins even more.
Sure. And that's why I'm always jealous of left-handers, because I always want to have a cross-court smash from their forehand side, right?
Yeah, and the angle's so good. Maybe it's part of it because we're not used to having someone at that angle because we hardly face a lefty, right? But it also has to do with the shuttle and how you slice the shuttle. It spins even more because of how the shuttle is made, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, Eric. So we're going to move on to some of these questions that I've stolen from Reddit. I did not ask for permission, so I apologize in advance to these users on Reddit that had asked questions in the forum. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to get professional badminton player like yourself, Eric, to answer these questions for these developing players. I want to start with this first one that comes from M_easy with a Z triple X. So M_EAZ or ZYXXX. And he's asked, he or she, I don't know if it's a he or she, I want to play in tournaments, but my state in Kentucky, USA, doesn't have any official local clubs or teams. Am I doomed to not have a chance at it?
No, you don't. Because if he's willing to travel, there's other tournaments in other states. Of course, at the moment, everything is suspended. But when everything opens back up, USA Badminton is doing a great job of having a lot of local tournaments now, especially junior tournaments. It's all over the country now.
Cool. So there's definitely some opportunity there for M_EasyZXXX. All right. So make sure you do look out for them. We've got one also from, I don't know how to say that, but GOYATHLAYA. And this person asks, who do you think is the most athletic player? So it could be the current culture or of all time, and whatever your definition of athleticism is. So some would say the vertical, like coordination, speed, agility, endurance, strength, stamina, etc. So who would you think is the most athletic player or was the most athletic player of all time?
Probably Lindan. He is just a beast. That guy's just a beast.
Lindan at peak performance, yeah?
At peak performance, yeah. Right now, I'd probably say Momoto.
What part of Lindan's physical fitness or any of those things that you're saying makes him the most athletic? Which parts of those are better than Chong Wei, in your opinion? Because I'm thinking Chong Wei, to be honest, but yeah.
I mean, his smash and recover. It's and he can do that all day. He dives and then gets back and then smash. You know, it's just physically. Before him, I don't think anyone has done that. Right, dive and then come back up and then jump smash, and then dive again and then come back and jump smash. At least during the peak, and even towards the end, he was still doing it. Chong Wei is physically so fit, unbelievably fit. And I remember when we were training, we would start training at 6 a.m. and he won't be done until 12 noon or 1 p.m. You know, and we would just be training the whole time, and he'd play every single one singles nonstop. And he'll just be on the court the whole time.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and I was one of them, and I got 0, 7-0, and I'm like, what is going on? And that's like after an hour and a half of like sparring with different people.
Yeah,
he's a beast, isn't he?
It's just like a conveyor belt of players. You were just part of the conveyor belt, right? You were just rotating on, rotating off.
Yeah.
Was anyone beating him?
I don't think so. Close, but I don't think so. Even when we were running the morning run, we would start at 5 a.m. We would run 1 mile times 10, you know, and that was brutal. And he would be running under like 5 minutes, like 5-minute miles, you know, consistently. So it was 5:20, if I remember correctly. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So Lindan over Chong Wei in terms of athleticism?
I feel like he's been swayed halfway through his explanation.
No, I have to go to Lindan just because of his explosiveness on court. It's just crazy, especially during his peak.
Look, it's pretty hard to compare between Lindan and Chong Wei as well. They're going to start a massive debate for all those listeners that are either one side or the other, like you and Jeff are. But yeah, I agree. I mean, between those two, in terms of who's the most athletic player of all time, then yeah, definitely they're in contention for that. So there you go, Goyathlea. Thank you, Goyathlea. Now let's move on to our next question from Wordsmith22. So Wordsmith asks, does height matter? His height is around 5'4" or 5'5", and he supposes that he's not able to cover the whole court. On a side note, he says he is just a beginner, and he wants to know, whether he can hit a good jump smash or play shots like a normal guy if he was training. I guess the first thing before letting you go, Eric, I would say that yes, you are a normal person as well. So there are definitely players around that height being able to play good badminton. But go for it, Eric.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's disadvantage and advantage of being tall, and there's advantage and disadvantage of being a little on the short side, right? If you're tall, you get the angle drop, the angle smash, but you have a hard time bending down, right? Because you're so tall, it takes you longer to go down. You tend to be not as agile. Body shots a little harder to hit, right? Because you're tall, your arm is long, so it's harder to hit these body shots, right? But when you're short, you tend to be more agile. You tend to be faster in the court. Yes, you have to take more steps, but your court coverage tends to be a little bit more quicker, I guess, feet-wise. Yes, you don't get the angle, but your underhand game is really good. You're deceptive in the front. Your defense tend to be really on point. So it really depends. Same thing with a little bit of like, if you're a little bit in a heavy side, you tend to have the power, but your court coverage is not as good. You tend to be in the skinny side. You don't really have as much power, but you can last longer maybe, or you can have a better court coverage. So it really depends on how you work towards the strength and your disadvantages.
Yeah, and going back to court coverage for Wordsmith 22, what would you recommend? Because, from my understanding, 5'4", 5'5", it doesn't really matter. You should still be able to cover the court fairly easily if you're trained correctly. So what kind of, recommendations or suggestions would you provide to this young player?
I'll start with footwork drills where you divide it into 3 sections. You just do the front first, right? And then you do the side footwork, and then finally the back footwork. When you build up the endurance and stamina doing that, then you can do front and back a little bit longer distance. And then after that, you can do diagonal, like smash and come in all the way from the corner to the other corner of the court.
Yeah, and just a little fun fact for Wordsmith 22. I was just looking up while we're having a chat. Tien Minh Nguyen, the Vietnamese player, he's 5'5", so he's 169 centimeters. And I just looked him up, and he's beaten Chong Wei. He's beaten top players, top 10 in the world. So I think there's no doubt you can do it. So don't let that be a limitation for you. And hopefully this, as we talked about earlier, Eric, hopefully hearing this will help you to believe, yes, you can, because someone out there has done it. And there's definitely other players who have done it. But that was the first player that came to my mind when you said, hey, I'm not that tall. But then you see players like Tien Minh Nguyen who, amazing badminton player.
Yeah, and who's this? What's his name? Ginting from Indonesia, right?
Yeah, Anthony Ginting. How tall is Anthony Ginting?
Correct.
Yes, amazing.
I actually don't know how tall he is. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And his deceptive, right? So that's what I was saying. Like, you might not have the height, but because I'm 5'6", 5'7", and so I'm considered to be in a little bit on the short side. But we tend to we lack some attributes, but we also have other attributes that are better than other athletes that are taller, like Ginting, right? Like his hand's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's so fast.
Exactly. So, I don't think you can achieve that kind of leg speed with someone really tall. That's what is amazing about Victor, is that he's so agile at that height. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so going back to that as well, Ginting, I found that he's 5'6", so 1.7 meters. So he is on the shorter side, as you can probably tell from watching videos. But yeah, like Eric said, he's such a fast player. He's so naturally just at the net, just so in control, such a great touch, just an amazing all-round player.
Yeah. And then, of course, the women's players as well, like Yamaguchi, Okuhara, they're not tall at all. Like, I walk next to them and they're not tall at all, and they're still covering the court. So definitely that you can still do lots of things to be an excellent badminton player, Wordsmith22. All right, so for our last question for today, it's from a user from Reddit, and the username is half-assed setting. So that's pretty cool. So the question is, Eric, has anyone used a training racket before? Do you recommend them? My college has one of those extra heavy training rackets, which I personally never used before. I'm wondering how useful these rackets actually are. Has anyone used them? And if they do, what do you recommend that you do with them? When should you use them? And do newbies benefit from them as well? So I'm going to just quickly squeeze in and say, yes, absolutely beneficial. I use them in my sessions that I coach. I used to use them when I was training. But Eric, it's all up to you.
Yes, definitely. It's very, very useful. We use it all the time. Specifically, we use it during smash drills, right? Like when we're having them our players jump smash at the back, we have them use a heavy racket. Even when during drives or they're hitting against the wall, we have them use, and it definitely speeds up their drives. Right, and then smash, you just feel the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a way that you could do it, is definitely driving, definitely with other players. But what I've been doing recently actually is doing heavy racket, light racket, heavy racket rotating, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off for driving, hitting against the wall. Or you can hit against the wall overhead as well if you've got a high enough wall. You can do that where you're working on that pronation you talked about, Eric, where you're not doing a full smash, maybe you're just pronating and you're just practicing your overhead stroke, but you're already getting that strength in the forearm. So I think that using the heavy racket's really, really beneficial.
Yep. The one thing that I would add there for half-assed setting is that if you are a newbie and you're still working on your technique, be very careful with the heavier racket set because you are going to be more prone to injury. Yeah, just make sure that if you're doing practice, like generally speaking, hitting against the wall, something like that is fairly easy compared to, your overheads. If you overextend yourself using such a heavy racket, you can really injure yourself quite easily, especially if you're not using the correct technique.
That's correct.
And one other tip for people using heavy rackets is maybe you don't string them as tight as your normal rackets, so you don't have to keep stringing them. So it is a training racket. So I think I strung mine at something ridiculous, like 15 pounds or something with BG65 that would never break. It's still not broken after like 10 years, but I think that's the way to go.
Right. Now, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Now that I coach, instead of playing tournaments, I try to tend to string my rackets a little bit on the low side, just so it lasts a little bit longer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Eric, we have asked you lots of questions, and I really do hope that all listeners have gotten some really good benefits from hearing your answers, because there's lots of knowledge that you've shared with us today. So we just want to say thank you so much for being on this podcast. We've had a great time, and I've got a little fun fact here for you that we're speaking to Raj just last week, actually. And he was saying that he was losing to you for 9 years straight before he actually beat you. So you were just punishing him. And he said that when you first came over from the Philippines, you were untouchable. You were just dominating the whole US scene.
Raj is too kind, but yes, I was.
You were dominating.
I was doing pretty well. Yeah, I was doing pretty well. Yeah, Raj is a very good friend, and he's very very nice. Yeah, yeah. During the junior years, I was very very lucky and very fortunate to have won. I think the only time I lost was to Bob under 19, and I was playing an age group up.
Bob Malathong, everyone out there who is not sure who Bob is.
Yep. So even underage, he was dominating. We just lost out to Bob in that tournament there. So Eric, we're at the end of our podcast now, and before we go, if there are any listeners out there who has maybe one more question to ask you out of the, I don't know how many questions we've asked you today on this podcast, for just general advice and tips to improve on themselves, is there any particular way that they can get in touch with you?
Sure. You can email me at my name, ericjgo@gmail.com. For if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer them and get back to them as soon as possible. Yeah.
And I guess if they're close by as well, close by the academy, then potentially they definitely could come in for some sessions as well.
Yeah. Hopefully everything open up soon. Yeah.
So Eric, from Jeff and I at Volant and the Badminton Podcast, we just want to thank you again for coming on and sharing your story and your knowledge and experience with us and the listeners.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on your show. Thank you.
No problems. And for those listeners out there who've really enjoyed this episode, just like Jeff and I have enjoyed recording it, please share it with all your friends. If you're a newbie like Half-Ass Setting said he or she was, then make sure you share it with all your newbie friends as well, because they might have the same questions and they might want that answered as well. And yeah, I think it's important to make sure that you do take into consideration Eric's experience and knowledge for those answers, because it can really help you on your next step to becoming a better badminton player. So make sure you get out there when you can and train hard and play hard and show the world how incredible our sport is.
And if you do want to get in contact with us, so myself, Jeff, or Henry, you can do so on our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, etc. Our handle is Volantwear at VOLANTWEAR, or you can contact us on our website, www.volantwear.com. Feel free to ask any questions that you've got, because some people are reaching out, asking questions, and we're able to ask professional players or former professional players like Eric as to what they think about these. So you're not getting one-sided answers that don't have much validation. You're getting answers basically from people who have been there and done that. So looking forward to recording our next episode for you. Until then, stay safe and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
See you guys. Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Volantwear, the most versatile badminton apparel you'll ever own.